Take a deep breath in. And we're going to release, grounding our energies once more. Another deep breath in. One more. And here we are. So we just watched the 5-minute video that was between Brené Brown and Oprah Winfrey talking about the 6 types of people who do not deserve to hear your shame story. And I absolutely just love that. And to quote Brené Brown, "You share with people who have earned the right to hear your shame story. You share with people who have earned the right to hear your shame story." And then Oprah's response, I absolutely love it. "Damn, that is good!" We need to pause for a moment because this is how people get so messed up and violated. It's like what the Bible says, casting your pearls before swine, offering yourself up to people who don't deserve to have that offering. Offering yourself up to people who do not deserve to have that offering. Breathe that in for a moment. Breathe that in for a moment. Now, following up with that, I really want to take note that any person that can't hold space for you or that uses, abuses, misuses the information, they're not bad people. It's not something to point the fingers at. It is, let's remove all duality from it. Let's remove the right, the wrong, all that fun stuff. This is more about having a self-awareness, having healthy boundaries to know who, when, and where to share your vulnerability. Does that make sense? So breathe into that for a moment. I was thinking about that, and when I watched that video, I went back on my life, and I thought of the times that I shared those soft spots of my soul with others, the parts of my heart that were still healing, maybe the shame stories, the things that I felt guilty about. Anytime I just opened myself up into the deeper stuff than the surface level that we kind of just do small talk about. And I look back at the different people that I did that with, and a lot of the times, it was with the wrong people. And again, I don't like using the word wrong, but there's really no better word than to put wrong in parentheses and quotes for this, because wrong in this instance just means not the right place, not the right time. And that is okay. And what's cool about that is that it brings back our power for us to start making better decisions. Who has shared your shame story or your guilt story or just any soft spot of any soft area of your life with another person and it didn't go well? It didn't go well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. A lot of times that can occur. And maybe that person just is not in a position to hold that space. And we presented an expectation on them. And then we get mad at them for not being able to hold space for our stuff. That if we had more self-awareness and we took a step back, maybe we saw all along the red flags. I know back when I was healing my soul, I was desperate for attention. And I would share my story with the world. Anyone who was willing to listen on that bus stop, at that bar, online. Anyone who was willing to hear my story, I would share it. And oftentimes, it was not in sacred space. And oftentimes, people would just reinforce my negativity, or they'd be offended by it, or they'd create shame. Maybe you have actually, maybe it's not even shame stories. Maybe it's just like the best opportunities that have come your way and you share it with the people that you love. And then they put shame on you for choosing to walk your life the way that you want to walk your life. Choosing that job, choosing that relationship, choosing anything that brings you joy, and you share it with someone, and what happens? Have you ever felt like someone tried to bring you down when you were in a moment of joy? That is another version of this, of knowing who to surround yourself with, what type of relationships you really want to cultivate. So let's look back at that video. Again, it's the 6 types of people who do not deserve to hear your shame story. And for those watching at home on YouTube, we'll put the link down below. And so there are 6 types of people that Brené Brown shared with Oprah. And it's the people who feel shame for you. Then you have to make them feel better. So you share, and then they start to feel shameful, or they feel embarrassed for you. And then you have to try and find the silver lining to help them. And then second, and this is a big one we practice here, is they feel pity for you. And Dunshie, Maria, and Emma, and myself, and even Susie, who works here as well, anytime we have a client or student or anyone who walks through those doors, we practice non-pity. We don't say, oh, you poor thing. We don't say, oh, how horrible, how tragic that was your life, that you went through these things. I can't believe you survived that. How are you still walking? How are you still functioning? That is so hard. Or we start crying with them. I used to cry with my clients and students, but then I realized I was just lowering my vibration. Sometimes there might be a moment where it touches me and I realize it's just a release, but no longer do I get wrapped up in their pain. Because if I get wrapped up in their pain, or I feel bad for them, or I feel pity for them, what occurs? What happens? I'm reinforcing that story. I am reinforcing the victim mentality. Mm-hmm. And third, the failed expectations. You let them down. They had you on such a high pedestal that they opened their soul up to you because they maybe missed that mark on one occasion because they're human like the rest of us, and they are just And that doesn't feel good, does it? We have all been there, haven't we? Maybe even just like with parents or with our spouse or just with friends and family. We feel like we let them down, and then what happens? Oh my gosh, the shame goes through the roof. Then we feel worse about ourselves. And that leads into, then there's the people who are kind of like silently uncomfortable with it. You share, you open yourself up, and then you're just like, do you have any comments to share? And they're just like, it gets awkward. And that uncomfortable with it can also become, they start to accuse you of it. And I'm sure we have all felt that with a parental figure before, where you've done something and then they come back and point the finger at you. You know what you did. You don't need any extra persecution coming from anyone in your life. And so that's a thought, isn't it? And then there's the denial and the dismissive. Oh, you're just exaggerating. Or that you tell your story to someone and then they just kind of go into something else. It's kind of, I always picture the stereotypical 50s housewife that are just washing the dishes, then mommy comes, or the daughter comes up and just says something, and she's like, la la la. What's normal, mommy? Just the setting on the washer, honey. That's a meme that I've seen on Facebook or other social media. And so that denial, we sometimes see that. I think of like the Desperate Housewives, some of those episodes that go on with that. So it's just that denial, that dismissiveness, the not wanting to confront the situation, the magnitude of the situation. And then 6, maybe you share with someone that makes it about themselves, and then they try and one-up you. They don't even fully hear your story, and then they start going into their own story. I don't like calling it so much being self-absorbed. I call it being absorbed with the self. And that happens too. And so, my goodness, so many quote negatives. But so what do we do in reverse? What do we do in return to that? And that's really what we practice, isn't it, Dunshie Maria? It's fully listening to people without analyzing the situation. Fully listening without having to add commentary. Fully listening and just having such undivided attention that you're not thinking what you're going to say next. You are just there. It is the art of presence. You are just there with that person. A lot of times, my mom, she recently I actually had such a shame moment this past week where I felt like I was being such a hypocrite with the teachings. And I loved what Dunshie Emma shared previously about her interaction with her son. I had that moment in my own life in a different way. And so I called my mom up and I said, I kind of need a slap in the face right now. So I'm asking for your opinion on this. And so I remember you shared, and you're like, I don't know, am I even helping? Am I even helping? I don't know what to say. And I said, it's not about saying anything. It's just accepting me and seeing my best self when I cannot. When I'm having difficulty seeing my best self, sometimes it helps having a friend or family member or spouse, a best friend in your life that can help you see. your best self. Does that make sense? And so in that moment, my mom knew more than anyone in the world that all that I went through, because you're my mom. And so you knew who I was 10 years ago, and I needed that reflection and to look at the huge difference of what has occurred in my life, and to show that spotlight. And so Dunche Marie and myself, and Dunche Emma, and Susie, and everyone who ever works here, Lisa now, activate you.
That's right.
The being able to see your best self and surrounding yourself with the people that rejoice in your successes, that have gratitude, even when you are down in the dumps, that always find the silver lining. Or sometimes you don't need that silver lining, you just need someone to hold your hand. So hold your hand. So this was just so delicious. So take a moment and think about the people in your life, and think about the friends who, do you feel like you have to constantly keep explaining yourself to them? Do you have to constantly keep justifying your actions to them? Because I believe in a co-creative relationship, there's no justifying who you are. Ooh, that is rich. Write that down. There is no justifying who you are when you are in a co-creative relationship. Family, friends, relationships. There is no justifying who you are. And I am so blessed in my life to have a community like that, to have colleagues like that, to have best friends like that. Isn't that rich? 10 years ago, I didn't have that. I had it with family, but I didn't know what it was like to have it on a more expanded scale. So let's breathe into that for a moment. I want to look at the idea of overcoming shame versus embracing and accepting shame. Overcoming is a very harsh word, and it almost feels like there's something to be shameful for, thus you have to overcome it. But the very concept of shame, what is shame? A painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior, or maybe a feeling of inadequacy, not enough, something wrong with who I am. And when you're looking at it from a point of view of trying to overcome it, you're kind of actually reinforcing the story that you have it to begin with. And so a lot of what we teach in Living Peace is that most things, if not everything, is an illusion to some degree. And if you can root out and find the root of what you're shameful about, you might often find that it actually is just an illusion, that any feelings of inadequacy, any feelings of low self-worth, they're just negative commentary. They're just stories that maybe were never yours to begin with. Maybe you were growing up and someone said something negative to you about yourself, and you adopted that belief for yourself. You're just like, and then you keep thinking about it and thinking about it and 10 years go by and it's still there. But this time, 10 years later, it's a full-blown reality where you start to expect people to treat you in that way. And when you expect people to treat you in that way, what happens? They do. A self-fulfilled prophecy through the 7 universal laws, through the law of attraction. How we perceive reality, how we think, who we believe ourselves to be often creates the experiences. Or maybe it just makes us not take the opportunities that come to us because we don't feel like we're good enough. So breathe into that for a moment. Going back to what Oprah said, this is how people get so messed up and violated. So messed up and violated when you share with the wrong people. Wrong people, again, quotes. It's not about being bad, it's just about the power is in our hands to choose. I want you to, so for your homework this week, the next time someone does not hold the space for you that you expected them to, I'm inviting you never to be angry at that person again. Never be angry at that person again. Never be angry at any person again. The next time your expectations on people in your life are not met. Does that make sense? And realize the power is in my hands to choose who I open up with. Thank you, friend. Thank you for showing me. Thank you for showing me this was not an avenue for me. And now I'm going to go and find my tribe. I'm going to find the people that do resonate, that do uplift me, that do support me. Does that make sense? And they are out there, I promise you. Many of you in this room who found each other here in this community. I know before I started ESC, I kind of felt like I was alone, and there's a lot of people that come here that they said, I thought I was the only one that thought like this. I've only ever seen it on TV on Oprah. There are a lot of communities like this, and they're sprouting every year. Isn't that beautiful? Deliciousness. So breathe into that for a moment. And I just want to share a couple quotes by Brené Brown. And I'm thinking maybe next month, maybe we'll do, like, for book club, we'll do one of her books. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable, only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of light. I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. I love that. When they feel seen, heard, and valued. It is okay to walk away from anyone who does not value you. It is okay to walk away from any experience that does not value you. That does not make you a bad person, and that is not something to feel shame or guilt over. Because a lot of times we keep ourselves trapped. We keep ourselves in relationships and situations where we're not being valued. And every day, I've worked with so many people, and I have felt this way before in my life before. Every day you wake up and you go into that experience, and you continue to feel that way. And then everyone, how people are talking to you, it's the reinforce, the reinforce, the reinforce, the reinforce, the reinforce, the reinforce. But if it is someone that you so love, and it's someone of a relationship that you value, then that's important to start opening up the channels of communication. Because a lot of people, again, this is why there's no right or wrong or good or bad in the world, because a lot of people that may be creating that energy in your life, maybe they never learned how to properly communicate. Maybe they never fully learned how to express love in a healthy way, because that's just their product of their upbringing, and they didn't have the tools. So sometimes if you become the embodiment of peace and you become so self-aware, you can become the teacher. You can learn and shift your relationships and make them so much better and so much heightened, rather than running from them when we sit with it and when we look at it and when we say, I do not feel valued here. I've done that in a friendship before. I went to one of my close friends who's not in this community, who doesn't practice this stuff. I went to his home one day, and he was in such a rotten mood that he was insulting me in front of my partner. And he was just throwing me under the bus, and it's one of those, like, you became friends when you're a teenager, and it's kind of like the bro, and it just rolls over into adulthood. And I told him, I had to share with him, I called him on the way home, and I said, what was that about? I have never had anyone speak to me that way in such a long time. So, like, grade school. What is that about? Where is that coming from? I love you so much. I value this friendship so much. What is this about? Because I'm never putting myself in that situation again. And so he opened up to me. And it was never about me. It was never about me. I triggered something within him. Here I brought my partner over at the time, and maybe he was going through feelings of loneliness. I was telling him about the successes of my life, and all he could see was where he was being a failure. And so I was then able to hold space and understand where that was from. Like Brené Brown shared, she values even those friendships that when you go into it and then they don't have any empathy, and then they just turn it around and make you feel shitty about your life, but then they realize what they did after, maybe a day or an hour or a week later, and they say, I am so sorry, I was not there for you. I was looking at my stuff so much that I was not even able to hold space for you or even have gratitude for your life. those are relationships to hold on